I am genuinely so happy because the champion news or the champion showcase has just released for Loki the Deceiver, the new champion that's coming with this whole Asgard divide thing that's going on inside Raid. And I'm so happy, not necessarily because the champion looks good, because I'm excited to play it, or because I think it'll be good content that everybody can take part in, or because I think we won't have to spend money. No, I am excited because my YouTube can finally go back to normal. The past couple days, all that it's been is thumbnails and titles that are saying things like, "We got the full Marvel cast coming to Raid Shadow Legends. Oh my god, they are doing a cross promo with Disney on this. Oh my god, there's a new dungeon coming. Oh my god." And then you actually click on the videos and they go something like this. So it starts off, it's like, "Hey guys, we're in Raid here today. We're talking about the new dungeon that's coming. I think there's a new dungeon coming. There might not actually be. I don't really know. I'm just making this video for money." Anyways, here's a 2-minute sponsored segment out of my 8-minute total video. This is Doo Doo Caca. I guess I should be pointing over here. This is Doo Doo Caca, a mobile game that I definitely do not play, that I was paid to promote. This is a game that you can download. It's 100% free. They definitely want you to spend money though, so they sent me $5,000 to promote this game. Not actually sponsored, by the way, just making fun of these ads. They spent $5,000 to have me promote this game. I want you guys to download this on the hope that the 2% of you that become extremely addicted to gacha systems spend big and they can make their investment back. Here's my in-game name. Again, I definitely don't play it, so you won't see me there, but check it out, guys. Back to the video. So, I prefer to bring you guys a little bit of content that respects your time. When I talk about stuff in Raid, I prefer to actually talk about reality and stuff that we know that's going to happen. I'm not going to make a 10-minute video talking about assumptions or sharing some pretty pictures with you. So, this pretty picture I'm sharing is stuff that's actually confirmed to be coming to the game. I want to talk about this champion from the perspective of a player who is a very, very low spend, or these days, more accurately, a free-to-play player. What do we have? This is Loki the Deceiver. We do have confirmation now that there is going to be a new dungeon coming. There's going to be at least 4 new champions, none of which are a dog, by the way, so we did not get the crossover with the Shayak fusion that we were hoping for. A lot of people were thinking that they were going to bring in Fenrir, the huge hound, for this particular crossover, but they did not. So we have an A1, attacks all enemies, 50% chance of increasing the duration of all enemy debuffs by 1 turn. If he's under a veil or perfect veil, the chance increases to 50%, which would book to 70. This is a pretty damn good A1. Having a 70% chance of increasing the duration of all enemy debuffs on an A1 is absolutely insane, and it's an AoE, which makes it even better. Select a target on his A2. This will be a 100% chance on a 3-turn cooldown. Select a target. If the target is an enemy, 100% chance placing the blocked active skills and a block buffs for 2 turns. If the champion using this skill is under a veil or perfect veil, also applies a debuff spread effect, taking 2 random debuffs from the target and placing them on all enemies. This can be very interesting both for PvP and PvE. We'll cover that in a little bit more detail. If the target is an ally, heals them by 50% of his max HP, which is quite nice. Considering he is a support legendary, he's probably going to have very good base HP as well. And places a perfect veil on them for 2 turns. If the champion is under a veil or a perfect veil, also places a buff spread effect, taking a random buff from the target and placing it on all allies. I believe this is one of the first skills of this type we've seen where it has a buff spread effect, where it's not necessarily just a buff extension or those sorts of things. So Raid is consistently doing a good job of kind of power creeping their older champions and bringing out new features, which we will talk about that on the passive. A3. This is going to be Bandit Flash on a 4-turn cooldown, has a 100% chance of stealing all buffs from a target enemy and 100% of their turn meter, so something pretty ridiculous like we see from our Armands, except Armands does it on an AoE and he also places a stun. These effects cannot be resisted if this champion is under a veil or perfect veil. If the champion's turn meter is not stolen, fills the turn meters of all allies by 15% instead. Also places an increased attack on all allies for 2 turns, which is pretty sweet. Now his passive is interesting. Missed Step, 4-turn cooldown, places a perfect veil buff on this champion for 2 turns at the start of each round. So you see all of his prerequisites saying, like, if he's under a veil or perfect veil, he's going to place that on himself at the start of each round. Also places a perfect veil on this champion for 1 turn whenever their HP drops below 50%. Veils and perfect veils stop him from being targeted with single target attacks, and they also reduce the damage you take, which is pretty cool. Has a 15% chance to evade an enemy skill and all of its accompanying effects. If this champion is under a Veil or Perfect Veil, the evade chance increases to 30%. The way it reads, this is going to be essentially just a 30% chance to make someone like Armand's do nothing to him, which is pretty cool. And the way it says it as well, it would also imply that attacks are going to be something that he gets to evade too, which is pretty cool. If this champion's HP is below 50% when targeted by an enemy skill, has a 100% chance to evade that skill and all of its accompanying effects. This is very cool if you think about yourself, if you're about to get smacked down by a Rotos or something like that, or even say a Harima's A2 and you evade that, you're going to do so much for your team to help keep them alive there, which is pretty cool. This guaranteed evade then goes on cooldown, which would be the 4-turn cooldown that we have there. So, and then he also has an aura which increases ally accuracy in all battles by 60, which is definitely one of the best all-battle accuracy auras that we have inside the game. Let's talk about this champion and let's talk about my impressions. First of all, I want to make this very clear. This is a very decent champion. I think this guy is going to be very competent in a lot of areas of the game. AoE A1 is good for a stun set, if nothing else, if there was nothing else in this guy's kit, right? Having a tanky champion that can place stuns is going to be fantastic if you're trying to get through some Doom Tower rooms, for example, if you're trying to get through Centranos. Could be a possible campaign farmer as well, depending on what his multipliers are. And if the damage is based on like HP, defense, or attack, I'm guessing it's probably going to be based on attack. His A2 is very interesting. A2 and A3, a lot of people have been saying that this guy is going to be a counter for Armand's. I would say I'm going to be pretty hesitant to believe that because he doesn't do much that's going to counter Armand's. So if we think about it, he comes in with a Perfect Veil. He is going to have a 30% chance of evading Armand's and his accompanying effects. I don't think a 30% chance is really enough to be able to consistently rely on it. Some people I've seen in a few Facebook groups I'm a part of, they were saying, well, he can actually counter Armand's if he's faster. And it's like, yeah, sure, maybe, with his block active skills, but every champion in the game can counter another champion if they're fast enough to some extent. So I don't think this guy is really going to be the Armand's counter or the Armand's specialist that we were hoping for, or that a lot of people were hoping for at least. That might come in the way of some of these other crossover champions though, so keep that in mind. This guy is going to be very good for PvE for sure, placing that block active skills and block buffs. I don't think he's going to be a PvP champion because he has a lot of debuffs, and what procs in the arena? A lot of polymorph. Now, if this reads correctly, then there is a very solid chance, it depends. If polymorph is coded as a skill, or if this passive recognizes polymorph as a skill, then that essentially means there's a 30 or a 15% chance of evading polymorphs if this guy's going to get polymorph, but I don't think they're going to do it like that. I think this is going to be just skills and not polymorph. If it does include polymorph, though, this champion's value is going to go quite a bit higher than he would be otherwise, because if he has a chance to avoid becoming a sheep, on top of the new set we have that also makes you a 50% chance, that's going to get him up to like an 80% chance overall, roughly. Or, of course, if his HP is low, he's going to basically just have a chance to evade it regardless. This guy could be very good in a Swift Parry set, obviously, right? If you get that Unkillable to proc and then he gets some evades stacking up like that, going to be very cool. I think he's definitely going to introduce a lot of RNG into the arena, which is already RNG heavy if you think about like certain skills that have a 50% chance to do something. If you think about cooldown increasing effects, if you're talking about polymorph and fears and true fears and stone skin and all those sorts of good things, this guy now on top with his evade skill is going to be very interesting. I don't think he's going to really be a meta-defining champion though. We will have to see. It's going to depend a little bit on playtesting. So if he has the ability, once again, to avoid polymorph, I do think we're going to see him quite a bit in the later game arena. For PvE content, for pretty much all players, I think he is going to be pretty good. Having a buff spread, having veils and perfect veils on himself, having block active skills and block buffs as well as debuff spread is going to be very significant for your team. The only thing to keep in mind is essentially his hit is just the A1, which is an AoE, which is pretty nice. So he's not really going to be too much of a damage dealer, even if his A1 does hit decently hard. He's just placing those skills, which does also mean you don't have to worry about affinity. He could, of course, be a block buffs champion for your Hydra teams as well, especially considering that he's placing the debuff spread. Keep in mind you are going to have Veil or Perfect Veil in most cases anyways, because you're going to be trying to counter the one particular head of Torment, maybe, that places those true fears. So if you have that, he's placing a block buffs on somebody, and then he's also spreading some debuffs from them, which if they have no other debuffs, I have to imagine would, of course, be those particular skills, or those particular debuffs, rather. And then, of course, he is also spreading a buff on your allies, too. So I think this guy is going to be pretty okay, and considering he's a new 7-day login champion, we can't complain too much about him. That being said, though, let me know down in the comments what you guys think, and if you think he will end up countering our Mons. I don't really see it happening, but I could be wrong. I have been before. Thank you guys all so much for checking out the video, and I'll see you next time.